Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything: geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Porkins Policy Radio. As always, I am your host, Pierce Redmond, and you can find this show here at American Freedom Radio, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, as well as on my website, which is PorkinsPolicyReview.com. And if you are new to the show, there are lots of ways to listen. You can, of course, follow the show through the RSS feed on my website. Also archived, every episode is archived here at American Freedom Radio. You can follow me on YouTube, as well as TuneIn, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, a whole host of other podcatchers that are out there. Many of them are listed on my website. And of course, you can hear me rebroadcast later on in the week on a host of other networks on Friday nights, including awakeradio.us and Ed Opperman's Spreaker channel and his YouTube channel as well, People's Internet Radio. Lots of ways to listen to the show. Well, very quickly, I have a couple of quick announcements and things I wanted to say before we get into today's episode. I just first and foremost, I wanted to mention that we've got some brand new sponsors here at American Freedom Radio, and they are helping to keep us on the air, which is always important. It's always a struggle. Maintaining a live radio show and all the other stuff. So I just wanted to thank our brand new sponsors, and you can find them if you go to AmericanFreedomRadio.com. And right there on the front page, you'll see some white banners with both of our new sponsors. So I wanted to thank MetaHemp and also EnterHealth. And you can find, if you go to enterhealthbotanicals.com, you can find all sorts of stuff there. They've got superfoods, they've got organic coffee, all sorts of oils and salves and stuff like that. And if you go to metahempsolutions.com, you can find all sorts of various hemp products. A lot of stuff with CBD oil. I know people are really getting into CBD oil. So if you're interested in that at all, definitely check out MetaHemp Solutions. So big thank you to both of those sponsors. There's also some discount codes. If you go to the AmericanFreedomRadio.com website, you can see you can get 15% off on both. From both of those companies. So definitely check that out if you have not already done so. Also, I wanted to thank a couple of people for recently signing up for Patreon. So thank you to Jimmy and Luke, and also to a friend of the show, Michael Swanson from Wall Street Window, signed up as well at the $5 level. So again, if you want to support the work that I do, then you can always go to patreon.com/Pierce Redmond, and you can become a subscriber for as little as $1 a month. So thank you to Michael, Jimmy, and Luke for doing that. Also, big thank you to George, Ilya, and Curtis for making very generous donations on PayPal to help me get a brand new computer. Many of you will have probably seen me on Twitter talking about it. You'll know that I wasn't able to do a show last week because of my computer problems. I'm, knock on wood, everyone, I'm using my old laptop right now. And hopefully we will be able to get through today's show intact. But I am going to be getting a new laptop. So just a big thank you to George, Ilya, and Curtis for sending stuff on PayPal. If you want to send me something for my computer, then please go to just click on my PayPal button on my website. Two last quick things, and then I will bring on our guest. The bonus podcast for Porkins Policy Radio was posted before the end of September. I was able to get that out. So check that out if you haven't listened to it yet. A really fun, short conversation, maybe about 35, 40 minutes I did with Keelan Balderson basically after we recorded the episode on the Chris Benoit documentary, but talking about Tommy Robinson, his recent release from prison, some of the stuff surrounding what he's been up to, also the whole UKIP movement. So if you're interested in that, if you enjoy the kind of conversations that Keelan and I tend to have, definitely check that out. And also, there is a brand new episode of Open Minds on Air, the podcast that I do with the Open Minds Foundation. So check that out. You can find that episode 7. We spoke with Christian Zerko again. Very very long conversation in typical John Atack fashion. We went very very long, but very interesting. Lots of good stuff in there. So check those out. But anyway, enough of all of that. I want to welcome my guest today, who is a longtime listener and friend of the show, Artisan Loaf on Twitter, a.k.a. Nick. And I think many of the listeners out there will be familiar with Nick because, we've been Twitter friends for years. I think you were like one of the first people to really kind of follow me, and one of the first people I interacted with, way back when this was just a simple little podcast. So I'm very excited to have you on the show. Nick, how are you? It's good to be speaking with you.
Hi, Pierce. It's good to be finally speaking to you as well, because it's been a little time in the making, this particular episode, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Yes, right. We've had a couple of roadblocks along the way. Nick and I tried to record last week to no avail, but thankfully Danny is here to help us record. And as I was saying, I mean, we've known each other for quite some time. Again, if you can follow Nick at Artisan Loaf on Twitter. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Nick? What have you been up to? And I guess maybe we can kind of explain that a bit by just prefacing that we're going to be talking about Elon Musk and Tesla, and this is a topic that is both of us are quite fascinated by. But you are something of an expert, and you've been on Aaron's show on Transistor Radio talking about this. You've also been on Chuck Ocelli's show, The Ocelli Effect, discussing, I believe, Tesla and Elon Musk. And I remember Aaron and I discussing Elon, back when he made his infamous pedo comments, and I sort of referenced Aaron as being an expert, and he was like, well, I'm not really, Nick is really the expert, and you should have him on. So, Nick, give us a little bit, who is Nick? Who is Artisan Loaf?
Okay, well, as people may be able to tell from my accent, I am from the UK, but I do have the privilege of being able to travel all over the world, so I'm not in the UK right now, but I do get to travel a lot, so I've seen many things, but I'm also I'd say a small business owner, an investor. So the Tesla side of things is very fascinating when you come from, say, running your own businesses, investing in companies, just publicly traded companies, and you see Tesla and Elon Musk and what they're doing, and it's like, well, it draws your attention. And say you said like our sort of history on Twitter was, I think you were like my 3rd or 4th Twitter follower or something like that. Because so I had the account and never used it, and then so I saw your on it, so well, I'll follow you, sort of thing. And I think I had a brief interaction with you, and then sort of drift in and out of Twitter. But if you end up following the Tesla story, and I did really say, because of sort of my I want to look at successful business cases and see how can I emulate this? What did they do right? How can I apply that to my own projects? And Tesla became a really fascinating subject, and it was a really nice break from if you do a lot of investing and trading in the markets. A lot of really depressing news comes out, and it's a really dry, boring, tedious, detail-driven subject. So Tesla became like like an entertainment outlet from following like global markets and geopolitics. It's like, well, Tesla's a bit of fun, It's a new car company doing different things, and it seems, sustainable energy, and that sounds really, really good. So I just started reading more and more about the company, and then there's a Twitter community around it as well now, which even got a feature in I think it's the Times today, with the Shorty Air Force, for the people that are betting against Tesla in the markets, have to make people kind of claim to have an Air Force because one person that's involved in it on Twitter also has access to like a small plane and has taken surveillance shots, and other people have got drones and things like that. And I think it's the only crowdsourced research group that claims to have an Air Force. So that's something.
Yeah, certainly.
But it proves sort of how interesting a topic it is for so many people, and the amount of information out there if you really want to read and learn about it. So listen to my opinions and my thoughts, but there is more than any other company and any other thing going. There is so much information, so much analysis, good and bad, that's around it. So you can spend, if you want, every day just reading and learning about things that are happening with Tesla and Elon Musk.
Yeah, no, and I can attest to that, just by the fact that if you're on, like, just say Twitter and you search the Tesla hashtag, I mean, it's more information than you could ever imagine for what is just one of a million companies out there. Now, obviously, they've got this I don't know. I don't know if I really want to say charismatic CEO, but they've got this very prominent.
It's got to be charisma of some kind. I don't get it either, but it's obviously something about his character and his demeanor draws people into his sales pitches.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, people are just so devoted to him, and then on the same side, there are people that are hypercritical of him. But overall, it unlike another large company out there, even you pick Facebook or Apple or I don't know, Walmart, or you could pick anything. There's not the type of scrutiny and as you say, like, analysis going into companies in the way that people study Tesla and Elon Musk and of course SpaceX. We'll get into some of these other ones. But Nick, why don't we kind of first just start with a little bit of background on Elon Musk? He was, and this is something that, like, I was sort of vaguely aware, but we were chatting last week on the phone, and you kind of eliminated a few things for me. But let's talk a little bit about Elon Musk's background. He grew up in South Africa and then moved to California, where he has attempted to craft this almost sort of like rags to riches story. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but there is this perception, that Elon just showed up in America with, I forget the figure, like $2,000 to his name, and now he's worth, I don't know, probably, $19 billion or something like that. So, let's kind of flesh this out a little bit, Nick. Let's talk a little bit about Elon Musk's background and his history and his move eventually to Silicon Valley.
Okay, well, yeah, he was born in South Africa to a pretty wealthy family. They weren't running South Africa, but they had considerable resources, more than 99% of Africans would have. He went to by all reports to the best private schools in South Africa, and when his parents split up, his personal drama growing up is really not hugely important to me, but it's still good to understand the context. His parents, I think, split up when he was quite young, and him and his brother chose to live with their father, who was part owner in an emerald mine in South Africa, or it was a neighboring country. And reports from him is, growing up, they had more money than they knew what to do with. They couldn't close the safe door. They had so much cash on hand.
Right.
So it's reports of him being taken to school in a Rolls Royce and things like that. But the bit that his fans tend to focus on with that is he got bullied a lot at school.
Oh, boo-hoo.
which is why he's so defensive these days, and why he can't take criticism, because people were mean to him when he was a child. Which I'm sure I think pretty much everyone has had experienced some instances of bullying, some more severe than others. But it doesn't give you a pass to be the character that he seems to be. But moving on from that, he then, when I think he was about 17, he moved to Canada, which he was able to do because through his mother's citizenship or birth, he could obtain Canadian citizenship. So he moved to Canada about 17. Played with some ideas of, he developed some games and did some other small business things. It's very hard to see what's true from those days, obviously. But he's been an entrepreneurial spirit for a long time. Went in and out of different universities. He hasn't really got the academic background that people sort of ascribe to him. He does have a degree. I can't remember in what, but he's not. He doesn't
hold like a PhD in like engineering.
No, as far as I'm aware, no. He does have credentials, but he is not. He is not an academic whiz. He say he dropped out ultimately to form his companies. So that's to me that's irrelevant if he what he's education wise, what you can do. So, but the fact he got to Canada through citizenship is not a rags to riches path most African immigrants take. So you can't. You can't, which is what really turned me on him as a character, as a person, thinking this person isn't as noble as he tries to portray. Because he did tweet this, 20 years ago or however long it was, he arrived in North America with $2,000 and a backpack full of books, and look how far he's come. Which, no denying, he's done extremely well for himself, even coming from that privileged background. But say opportunities that Elon Musk had versus the average African immigrant to North America, it's not in the same sort of ballpark. And that sort of I didn't look into it deeply, I'll be honest, but how and when he got his US citizenship seems to be kind of open to interpretation.
Which is like a theme.
There may be like a categorical thing, but I haven't seen that when he got it and how he would have been able to do it. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense to me, at least.
I was going to say, I mean, that's sort of a theme in the official, biography of Elon Musk, written by Elon Musk, where a lot of these things are kind of open to interpretation. In so much as like every sort of negative factor, or just sort of not necessarily like Elon Musk's fault, but like I know you mentioned this to me, and this is very salacious, but his father was dated his like stepdaughter or something.
Yeah, as far as I believe, his father has now had a child with his stepdaughter, a more recent stepdaughter. That is apparently true.
Right, and not that, I mean, again, it's not illegal, I guess. I mean, it's not. It's certainly I wouldn't do it, but it's those sort of factors are just sort of brushed aside.
Well, he has the rest of his family have very much distanced themselves from his father, and by all accounts, his father is not a nice person and not someone you would want to be around. But through him and his brother Kimball did choose to live with their father when they were growing up, so they chose it. It's in the book everyone has to read, which I've only skimmed through. So again, a terrible expert in this topic, I'll be honest. By Ashley Vance. It says that he's He's not. He's just not. He's not a nice person to be around, and they were very demanding of him. But they chose to live with him because it was right. You know, they needed the father figure. That was
right.
what I think Kimball said. Is they wanted to live with him because they wanted that father figure. So they got it by the sound.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I only bring that up just to obviously his father is an influence in his life, whether he likes it or not. You can't. Yeah. Whatever parent you live with, if you live with one or both, you do become them in some capacity. And I think as we'll touch on a little bit later with the sort of controversy over this diver Vern Unsworth and the comments that Musk has said. It's interesting given the fact of who Elon Musk is dating at right now and his father's own history. Marrying his stepdaughter. It's just like, are you projecting something here, Elon? But I think we'll get to that a bit later because I do want to kind of stay within this realm. I mean, briefly, Nick. I mean, let's just talk about the sort of his connection with Peter Thiel and the PayPal mafia. Because that's sort of what brought Elon Musk to the public's attention and kind of solidified him as this important player in Silicon Valley. So, how does PayPal enter into this situation?
Well, PayPal was originally X.com, which was Elon Musk's creation. This was after he made Zip2, which is like I think the people have described it as a cross between Google Maps and Yelp. So he created that, managed to get bought out from that, and then put money into PayPal, and that's sort of been his traditional path, is creating businesses to get bought by someone else. Then he gets pushed out, and then the company goes on to become very successful. But he's great at starting companies, perhaps not so great at running them for 15 years.
Seeing them through.
So yeah, great for it's someone you want in the room for the first 3 years to 5 years maybe, but he's never really run a business outside of being in startup mode, which is what they call it, for just burning through money forever. So he had a bunch of money, millions of dollars, from the buyout of Zip2, which he then plowed into making X.com, which was going to be the new payment platform, so people could send money to friends and family without having to wait on banks for years and all that kind of stuff. Because even today, bank transfers are not exactly quick a lot of the time. So he started working on this, and at some point fairly early on in that, he ended up meeting Peter Thiel, who was working on another project, very similar project, and they ended up, I think Peter Thiel's company ended up renting space from Elon Musk so they could work. They just needed some office space, and they ended up renting it from Elon Musk, and they ended up working in the same building apparently. And at some point, it got decided that merging the companies would be a really good idea, and that's kind of when PayPal kind of was created by the merging of these two enterprises, one of Thiel's and one of Musk's. And because Musk actually was the largest shareholder at the end after this merging, he became CEO of the company. And not long after, they had to force him out because he was making stupid business decisions, and they weren't really that sort of keen on it. So they managed to depose him, and he got booted out of PayPal for his erratic management. But obviously, in the process of everything, he was still a major shareholder, and when they got bought out by eBay, I think it was, he got his hundreds of millions of dollars around again. So he was very important in the creation of PayPal, but he was pushed out before it really became the phenomenon that it is today. And that's how he got to meet Peter Thiel, who really, obviously Peter Thiel itself is kind of like the other side of the coin of Musk.
Yes.
Because they both seem to have very similar ambitions, but have very different ways of going about it.
Mm.
And
their rhetoric is like polar opposite as well.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I guess I don't know if it's truly accurate, but Elon Musk portrays himself as the progressive crusader in Silicon Valley, and Peter Thiel very much embraces the hyper capitalist sort of Ayn Rand figure in Silicon Valley. So I find that interesting. Although I think both of those sort of are caricatures. I tend to sort of think Peter Thiel is kind of does fancy himself like a Randian, and I think Elon Musk is also. But he doesn't he doesn't want to give off that image. That's why he always wears these like tight T-shirts, and he got hair transplants, and he tries to dress like a child. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Whereas I don't believe Peter Thiel has ever worn a T-shirt in his life. It's just like he's a guy that would wear a suit to the beach. And also in a way too, Peter Thiel is a notoriously private, whereas Elon Musk will tell you everything you've ever wanted to know about himself and what he thinks and how everything is a simulation.
Everything he wants you to know, really.
Yeah,
it's not definitely not everything you want to know, but he will tell you a lot of things that he wants to hear himself. So.
But when you kind of if you sort of boil that down, I think they are sort of one and the same very much. I mean, they are both
different packaging.
Yeah, exactly, because they are both tech billionaires that work with the government on shadowy projects, and make these big political pronouncements about again, Peter Thiel, Mr. Libertarian, the state should have no say in what we do. Well, most of his money now, it seems, comes from government contracts. So he has no problem working, and I'm talking about specifically through Palantir, but, no problem working with the CIA, NSA, FBI, the Army, all sorts of, evil globalists that employ Palantir. And the same as, Elon Musk for all of his, I hate Trump and this and that. I mean, SpaceX has all sorts of contracts with the Pentagon to do God knows what in space. So, he has seemingly no qualms about that. So, yeah, but it is interesting, though, seeing that, they kind of come together to create this company and then sort of diverge. And maybe you might know this better, Nick, but I mean, it doesn't seem like they are particularly, friendly towards one another. I don't see them praising one another, really. I never really see Elon Musk talking about Peter Thiel positive. I mean, I don't really see him talking about him at all, but I assume it would necessarily be positive.
Well, that's what I was going to sort of say. That even though they had this obviously very pivotal moment, 20 years ago now, they haven't really. They very much diverged after when Musk left PayPal. They seem to have very much gone separate directions. I think there's a mutual respect, but at the same time, they say they don't. I don't think I've ever seen. Especially in recent, anything from the last few years of Musk talking about Thiel at all. He doesn't acknowledge his existence, and Peter Thiel obviously doesn't really have a public profile, so he's not being asked for interviews talking about him. Well, I'm sure he is being asked, but he's not accepting interviews to talk about Elon at any particular point. So I think if put on the spot, they're going to speak highly of each other.
Yes,
but. I don't think they're friends.
No.
They're business associates.
Yes,
they're people you have to deal with. Each other's history, so you know how far you can trust them, kind of thing. So it's not to say you're not going for dinner around each other's houses, but if one of them calls the other, they're probably going to answer it at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Yeah, I don't know if. Yeah, exactly. I don't think Peter Thiel is going to speak at Elon Musk's wedding, but
Peter Thiel is on the board, I think, for the OpenAI, which is Elon Musk's artificial intelligence charity organization, which
yeah, well, we can get into that a bit later.
But they still move in the same circles, and they still do cooperate. But they're not. I don't think they say ever since PayPal. I don't think they've ever, to say they do business together.
Right.
They're not. But I think they do probably see each other as competition in that respect still. That one of them is going to be this, technocratic billionaire that's going to try and rule the world.
Right. Yeah.
Which one of them has the upper hand at any given point?
Yeah.
So it's so I don't. Yeah, the Peter Thiel connection is interesting, but I do think it, for the most part, are separate stories of people that are just competing against each other rather than people that are working together. Even if they're working to the same ends, they're competing for it.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Well, let's shift a little bit and get into Tesla itself, and I guess by extension SpaceX as well. But because this is I remember like when Tesla first sort of started, popping up in my news feeds and just when it was this like buzz about it, and I, to be honest, I still don't quite get the obsession with Tesla, or rather, I don't understand people's obsession with Tesla. But I mean, for the listeners, elaborate on this a little bit. I mean, how did Tesla come into being? And why is he so obsessed with the electric car market? Which again, I think electric cars are a wonderful idea. It is a fairly mainstream film, but like Who Killed the Electric Car is a great little documentary if people are interested in the older, before Tesla, the history of electric cars, the myriad of factors that ultimately contributed to electric cars basically becoming not obsolete, but basically destroyed, is quite fat. And particularly, when you factor in the oil industry and, you can look at geopolitics and all of that. If we weren't fighting so many wars, we'd probably have a lot more electric cars. But Nick, talk a little bit about Tesla. How does Elon Musk decide this is my legacy? This is the hill I'm going to die on, is Tesla and electric cars, and particularly making electric cars pretty expensive too. These are not like, if you're trying to be helping the environment. I mean, Tesla is not necessarily the car I would think to buy. They are relatively expensive. I think their logo is hideous, and this sort of like, sports car as a electric car thing just doesn't really work for me. But I know you are like a bit of a car expert as well, or if on your Twitter feed you're always talking about classic cars and things like that. So let's talk a little bit about Tesla. How does Elon Musk decide this is what I'm going to do? Well,
the important thing to sorry, my phone is going off. I'm canceling it. Sorry about that.
No,
Unprofessional. The important thing to understand about that is, regardless of what history books do say, it took a lawsuit and a settlement for it to be acknowledged that Elon Musk is a founder of Tesla.
Huh.
He didn't actually found. He was an extremely early investor, but he didn't act. He wasn't in the room, when the three guys or however many it was said, "Let's make this a car company." So the history books will write him down as a co-founder, which is what he is according to this agreement that they came to. But he wasn't in the room when the actual people that founded the company in day one. He wasn't that.
Really?
So because he was a very early investor and ended up, say, in the position he's in, he managed to, he is a co-founder, not a founder.
So it's not really his. I mean, it is his company, I guess, but it's. I mean,
it wouldn't exist today without him,
right?
I'm fairly say a preface. All the stuff we talk about Tesla is, this is not investment advice. This is just me. I'm drunk giving my opinion. This is just opinion. The numbers I say may not be right. Do your own research. Don't.
Well, but Nick, as you said earlier, open to interpretation. I think that's an apt way of describing that. I didn't realize that either. Which, I mean, my shocking lack of knowledge.
Well, the other person that's worth noting in the history of, because there is another founder that still works at the company. I say the structure changes a lot, and it shouldn't be that important. But there was one of the other founders, Martin Eberhard, I think is how you pronounce his name, was one of the founders who was the original CEO of the company. But when they got Elon Musk's money, along came Elon Musk with that. And attached to his money was, you can't criticize me. And I'm going to stick my nose in all the time. So this is Martin's version of the story. Elon Musk made loads of changes and decisions really because they wanted to make the electric car cool, prove it wasn't a golf cart, make the world a better place, get us off fossil fuels, all that kind of thing. But the way to do that, they figured at the time, make people want an electric car rather than think, oh well, I could save $20 on gas if I buy an electric car.
Right.
So
make it sexy.
That was the idea. And Elon Musk kept coming along making all these changes to their original Roadster car to the point that the car went way over budget and was delayed. But then through his charisma, I guess, managed to convince the world that it was actually Martin Eberhard's fault that a Tesla project went delayed and over budget, which in hindsight proved not to be the case, I would say, because everything they've done since has been delayed and over budget.
Yeah.
But that managed to get the original CEO and one of the founders out of the company. And that was when Musk really asserted his leadership of Tesla. And I think the reason why he chose, he very much seems to have his loyalties split between Tesla and SpaceX. And I think the reasons for both are the same. It's kind of just, it's a hedge your bets kind of thing. If one of them doesn't work out, he's still hopefully got the other one to fall back on as his legacy. And it's because the things he's doing are really cool. I think that's ultimately what it comes down. He's found a way of presenting good concepts in a way that make it really cool. That make, having an electric car is like, okay, you want an electric car, whatever. But having the fastest production car in the world, which is...
Or like, I mean, doesn't Tesla have those like buttons that you push like in the car that like makes it like go super fast?
Yeah, well, it can do the top of the line Model S can do. I think it is under 2.2 seconds, or it's the fastest 0 to 60 time in the world, except for a Dodge that's practically undrivable on public roads.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But in reality it's not. But in general terms, it is the fastest production car in the world, 0 to 60 time. That's the metric that is important. But it's a good enough one. And obviously, you can beat everyone off the traffic lights with it. So
yeah, right, exactly.
So yeah, he found a way of packaging ecology and environmentally friendly ecosystem stuff in a cool and sexy way, which is named in the fact that he wanted after the Roadster, he decided the cars that they were going to make, the initials of the cars was going to spell out sexy. So we've got the Model S, we've got the Model X, the Model 3 had to replace the Model E because of Ford sued them over it, and the next one's the Model Y. So yeah, it spells out sexy. So
wow.
that goes, and the same with the solar roof, SolarCity thing. It's about the the roof has to look really good. It's not the fact that it's giving you electricity and it works. No, it has to look like slate. That's the important thing to Musk, is how things look more than anything. How things look, and like a little factoid you can give that sounds great but doesn't necessarily have actually much weight to it. Because for me, you don't need to, say the Roadster made electric cars seem like a viable option. You didn't then need to make another 2, now nearly 3 cars that cost $100,000 to keep proving that same point. Makes your proof of concept, and then say if they'd followed through, logically speaking, when they made the Model S, which came out I think in 2011, 2012 now, they could have worked economies of scale with that car, brought costs down, and they could have opened up the market really huge with that. But they actually went the opposite route and made it more expensive and more complicated and put more stuff in it. So it became, instead of being, when it first came out, it was the cheapest you could get was like $60,000. Now the cheapest you can get is like $80,000. But the average selling price of a new Tesla is like $100,000 or more at the moment. Even probably just under now with the Model 3, which was promised on being a $35,000 car, and currently the cheapest you can get one is $50,000 something. So it's quite a difference between that. But it's, say, the same with SpaceX. It's, no one said he could land, no one said that you can't land rockets back, but it makes a really cool YouTube video and Twitter GIF if you do land a rocket back. So that's what, it's not doing it because it's actually more efficient or more effective to reuse rockets, but it looks really cool. It really does.
Well, no, I mean that's like kind of my thing with Tesla is I understand that they are trying to sex up electric cars, as you just pointed out, literally spelling the word sexy with all of their cars. But it seems to have basically limited the actual number of people, who can afford electric cars. Yes, if you go to Silicon Valley or San Francisco, you're going to see a lot of fabulously wealthy people driving fabulously wealthy Teslas. But, here in New York City, you don't see those. What you see are more and more just regular, gas guzzlers. You'll see like like Prius and stuff like that, but in my mind, the whole concept of the electric car is yes, obviously you do want to make them look cool. You do want, that is partly how you sell cars. But for the majority of people out there, it's the car is really it is for practicality. It is to get from point A to point B. Now, the cheap electric cars that were around or cheaper, the average electric cars back in the what was like late 90s or whatever, early 2000s, those were just practical. They made sense, and they really, you did save a lot of money on gas. So it just seems like the whole, like you said, the business model has shifted to yet another luxury item for billionaires.
There's an important thing to understand in one of the fundamental reasons why Tesla as a business isn't operationally sound. And if you see, any other auto manufacturer has, the dealerships that you buy these cars from are like McDonald's. They aren't owned by, they are franchises. They aren't, GM doesn't own the dealership down the road from you.
Right.
But with Tesla, they do. Tesla owns all of its galleries and showrooms and whatever they want to call them, because they're not dealership. They don't have this middleman in the way. But what that does is enables, it diminishes their ability to be able to expand really quickly, because I can't go to Tesla and say, I'll give you $1 million and I'll run a Tesla dealership. That's not how it works. You have to wait for Tesla to come into your state or your country and set up operations there. You can't do it for them. They do. They control their whole ecosystem. or they're trying to do everything themselves. But that does, even if there is strong demand for the products, Tesla still has to pay for and actually invest in building out a huge amount of infrastructure, which is very specialist and unique to them, and they don't want help with the costs, essentially. So they can't expand as quick as they perhaps could do if they didn't have these constraints and also these extra costs associated with it, beyond having one factory and manufacturing in California. The other car companies don't have the restrictions that Tesla does. They can go to a dealership and say, we need you to buy 200 Honda Accords, and the dealership just has to kind of go along with that. And the manufacturer books those cars as sold. That's done. But Tesla, say, has to, all the lots, everything you see Tesla related, Tesla owns and pays for themselves, which they don't do with other manufacturers.
What's the point of that?
It's to sell direct to customers, to get rid of the dealership model, as the fans call it, because the logic is car dealerships don't make money on selling cars, they make money on servicing cars. So Teslas don't need servicing, apparently.
Right, yeah, okay.
They're no maintenance cars. And so Tesla doesn't need all the service centers and everything like that. You can just order the car online and it will be delivered to your door, or you can pick it up from the nearest Tesla facility. So they say that they're cutting out a middleman, so they're going to pass all the cost savings on to the customer. And also it gets a better experience because you're dealing direct with the company. You're not dealing with some shady car dealer.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Who's trying to, upsell you and
you can
undercoding.
There's plenty of reasons not to like car dealers, but just being different with all these things, just being different doesn't make it better. And I want to see new car companies. I want to see more competition, because essentially the major manufacturers that exist at the moment operate as a cartel. So it would be really nice to see someone shake up the industry. But the downside of this is Tesla owners cannot repair their own vehicles because there is no parts supply chain. Nothing is standardized. Everything changes all the time, and Tesla doesn't even seem to know themselves a lot of the time what parts are in different cars, because they change the parts so frequently. If you've got a car that was made 4 years ago, well, the part that you're looking for might have had 6 different revisions now, so the one on the shelf is not going to work with the car that you've got. And they don't necessarily know, and they say you can't just go buy Tesla parts and fit them yourself. So you are 100 when things do go wrong, which they inevitably do. You're 100% dependent on Tesla to do that. But the problem, especially now, they have one of them is that the most of their cars that are out there are under warranty. So people aren't paying for the repairs that need to be doing, and because they're not really generating any revenue, building out all the service centers and everything like that costs them a huge amount of money, which they get nothing for. But the theory is they're supposed to build this into this gets built into the cost of the cars. But because everything's just so expensive, it doesn't work. And what they've taken to doing, what they seem to do, is when you get a Tesla delivered, it seems to usually have at least a couple of small things that need fixing or paint needs touching up. They'll do that, and then that will be a warranty repair. But then what they'll do, if you then have another problem, and it could be a really serious problem, they will put it on there, like when they invoice you for this warranty work, they put it down as goodwill, which basically, I'm not an accountant, so bear that in mind. This basically enables them to transfer these warranty costs into marketing costs, because it's goodwill. It's just it's like a giveaway to a customer, but obviously you hope that feedback reverberates through and people find out how a great service you had. But these costs should be booked under warranty. But obviously then that would make these no maintenance cars look really, really expensive to maintain if they did actually book these revenues like you would hope they did. So the problem I find with the model is because it's like the iPhone situation. Apple tells you what you can do with your iPhone. You don't have a choice what Apple decides for the use case of your iPhone. You don't have much of a choice in that. And Tesla cars are the same thing. And when you say you're coming from like an enthusiast side, the idea that I can't, sit in my driveway and take apart a car and figure out things and replace parts when I want to and make things better or just change things. It's like, well, no, that's not good. And I say, this is why the traveling thing is important to my perspective, I think, on this, is because, like, right, I'm in South America, the nearest Tesla showroom is a continent away. So if I did have a Tesla for whatever reason and it needed a part, it's hard enough to get a part for a car that's that's regular around here, that's been in production for 15 years. So these kind of models don't expand, like you're saying with being in New York. I'd imagine that there is a very similar problem with, like, in Europe with these kind of things. You don't have a place to charge a car that's electric. You can't charge at home. When you get home, like this is the problem I've from my UK perspective. I don't know anyone that has a reasonable, apart from people that I know that are, extremely wealthy, because you don't have a garage or a suitable driveway to charge your car in most places in the UK. You park on the street. If you're lucky outside your house, you might be 2-3 blocks away.
Right.
So having this, like, say, the suburban American mentality of, I just charge at home overnight, or I charge it when I get to the office. It's like, yeah, but
yeah,
there's like 6.5+ billion people in the world that don't live anything like that, so they can't charge at home or charge at the office.
Also, I mean,
I've seen like industrial estates like in Europe where cars are like just parked everywhere, all up along the sidewalks. It's not all nice bays and stuff. It's the US experience of parking at home or anywhere else is so different to the rest of the world.
Totally. I mean, yeah, the practical side of it. Also, I mean, not to like dump water on all the environmentalists, but I mean, if your electricity is coming from like a nuclear power plant, like we do here, in New York, there's around the surrounding area are tons of Indian Point is an extremely dangerous nuclear reactor. It's in worse condition supposedly than the Fukushima Daiichi reactor, if you can imagine that. That's not really helping the environment. Electricity is still. Again, I'm not trying to. I think the idea of electric cars is a great idea, but we need to find a solution to how we get electricity where it's not necessarily coming from hydroelectric dams, which are really bad for the environment, or nuclear reactors. I mean, undoubtedly that is partly why Elon Musk is sort of, at least on the face of it, with the SolarCity, with the sort of solar energy. Although I think, as we'll explore in more detail in the second hour, there's another reason why Elon Musk decided to acquire SolarCity, which is not for altruistic environmental reasons. But yeah, I mean, just sort of looking specifically at the whole electric car thing. Yeah, I mean, there's so many issues here, and it's funny, and I think we'll probably try to pick this up at in the second hour. But this obsession, this like cult-like devotion to Tesla and ultimately to Elon Musk, I find that so bizarre when all of the things you just pointed out, Nick, are serious issues with the company. But as we're at the break right now, so I will be continuing this conversation with Artisan Loaf, aka Nick, in the second hour. So please stay tuned.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
Practically narcotic.
Freedom.
Oh, yes, I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
Have you experienced the miracle of CBDs? They can help you reduce suffering, reduce stress, help you sleep better, modulate inflammation in the body, and is absolutely safe. Meta Hemp Solutions offers a radically innovative approach to CBDs for exceptional results. Stop suffering and reduce your stress now. Isn't it time for a good night's sleep? Stop worrying about tomorrow today. Lab tested for potency, purity, and is non-psychoactive. Free shipping to all 50 states. Try our product risk-free. Money-back guarantee. Use code AFR15 to get 15% off. That's Alpha Foxtrot Romeo 15 to get 15% off. Offer ends soon, so visit Meta Hemp Solutions today at metahempsolutions.com or call 833-858-7500. Suffer no more. Get rid of the stress and sleep better. Get our product now at metahempsolutions.com. That's metahempsolutions.com.
We all know that they're not telling us the truth. So stand up for your rights, demand the real medicine, and your right to use it and grow it. This is Rick Simpson, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
Are the trials of modern-day living getting to you? Feeling tired all the time with no energy? Is proper nutrition a challenge? Having trouble sleeping? All of these evils, sleeplessness, tiredness, poor nutrition, and stress, wreak havoc on our bodies and minds. Enerfood, our incredible organic superfood, has been here to save your life day by day for over 14 years. With the densest nutrition on the planet, Enerfood is filled with 20 superfoods and super herbs designed to cure the evils of modern life. Enerfood will turn you into a superhero, and your family and friends will notice. Don't you want that get-up-and-go feeling you need to seize the day? Why wait? Try it today and start feeling great again. Order now at www.enerfood.com and use the code TR15 for 15% off, or call 866-762-9238 to place your order by phone. Use code TR15 for 15% off Enerfood at www.enerfood.com.
News and information you can trust. This is American Freedom Radio. Freedom, American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
When the weapons of mass destruction turned out not to be true, I expected the American people to rise up. They didn't. Then, when the Abu Ghraib torture thing surfaced, and it was revealed that our government participated in rendition, a practice where we kidnap people and turn them over to regimes who specialize in torture, I was sure then the American people would be heard from. We stood mute. Then came the news that we jailed thousands of so-called terrorist suspects, locked them up without the right to a trial or even the right to confront their accusers. Certainly, we would never stand for that. We did. And now it's been discovered the executive branch has been conducting massive illegal domestic surveillance on its own citizens, you and me. And I at least consoled myself that finally, the American people will have had enough. Evidently, we haven't. In fact, if the people of this country have spoken the messages, we're okay with it all.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs and artillery batteries not included.
Launch sequence initiated.
We're now in the approach phase. Everything looking good. Control is good. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
experience. American Freedom Radio. Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything: geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Porkins Policy Radio. I am your host, Pierce Redmond. If you are joining us here in the second hour, we have been speaking with a longtime listener and friend of the show, Nick, who also goes by Artisan Loaf on Twitter. We've been talking all about Elon Musk and Tesla. And before we jump back in, I just wanted to quickly mention once again, just a big thank you to our brand new sponsors here at American Freedom Radio. So big thank you to MetaHemp Solutions and also Enter Health Botanicals. So check out both of those. You can find links to that on AFR's website. But Nick, we were kind of going on about Tesla and some of the problems there, and I think that will give the listeners enough to kind of chew over, because I think, a lot of what you just brought up there are just practical problems, like getting beyond the sort of like cult of Tesla and Musk and how it's just, we must just do this because again, I think that the people, like the true sort of like adherents and acolytes of Tesla and what their sort of God Emperor Musk, is that it is this like kind of bullshit, we're saving the environment and the planet. This is, the most progressive thing you can do is to buy a $100,000 car. But beyond that, you've just, we've mentioned a lot of the practical kind of issues with that. In terms of, how you actually charge it, the fact that, the Goodwill service repairs, which again seems, fraudulent at best. But let's kind of expand this out and kind of focus a bit more on Elon Musk himself. And the mere fact that, like, if any of this has sort of struck you as like shady business practices or not quite on the up and up, that's really sort of like the tip of the iceberg. And earlier I mentioned SolarCity, which is another company which I guess technically no longer exists, but it was absorbed by Tesla and Elon Musk, and this is a solar panel company, which again is a great thing. We should have more solar panels. And you sort of touched on it a little bit earlier in the first hour. This idea that with SolarCity, this company, Elon Musk wanted to make solar panels look sexy. And many of us have seen the big black panels that you see on roofs, and yeah, they are kind of ugly. But again, they get the job done ultimately. What does it really matter what it looks like if you're getting, essentially kind of, free energy from the sun? But Elon Musk was all about making them look basically like regular roofs. And this has never actually kind of come to pass. And we'll talk about what we were sort of discussing off air. Is like outright fraud. This presentation he gave with SolarCity, with fake SolarCity panels. But what is SolarCity exactly, Nick? And why should people who are interested in understanding Musk and people who might be critical of him, why they should look into the acquisition of SolarCity by Tesla?
Well, SolarCity was, because it doesn't really exist anymore, was a company designed to, install solar panels and, battery systems, all over the US. I don't think they ever expanded outside of the US, maybe Canada. But yeah, just they were pretty much a typical solar installer, but they did to make it affordable because they were the most expensive option by many reports. They offered complicated like leasing structures for how you were going to buy and pay for. Like they would sometimes install the roof, but they would still own it, and you would lease it off them. And they say it was not most of the time it was not a simple, I'm paying you X thousands of dollars to install these solar panels that are now mine.
Mm.
It was a finance-based thing. But, they scaled pretty well. They were installing quite a lot of solar panels for a while. But like with Tesla, and this is a point for Tesla before we move on from that, they've lost depends how you calculate it, but over the course of Tesla's public operations, they've lost about $7 billion since 2010. They've lost almost $1.5 billion in the first half of this year. So when Tesla talks about profits, generally they're talking about gross margins, which they make look really good, but gross margins exclude, among other things, all their administrative and sales costs. So all those service centers and dealerships type things they have to do, all their office staff are completely cut out. The things that make their business model so different are ignored when they factor in how they calculate their profits. But if you take it in the actual, raw money in to money out situation from revenues, say they've lost nearly $7 billion, and the amount of debts they have are not inconsequential. They have, I think they've got to be in a certain position by the end of this year, start of next year, so they can pay off like $1 billion in bonds. I think and this is there's other things to pay off in between whiles as well. But what they can do is the hope is they'll be able to pay the bondholders off in stock, so they won't actually have to cash anyone out. They just have to issue more stock, and hopefully the market just absorbs it. So that's how the stock's got to be at a certain price, otherwise they have to pay cash, kind of thing. So they've got till the end of this year to be, which at the moment it looks like they're going to be able to pull it off, because it's in I think it's like the $250 range. If the price dips below that, then they're in real trouble. So SolarCity was in a very similar sort of, they were just hemorrhaging money, but they were increasing revenues, they were increasing growth metrics, but they weren't proving sustainable. But they got to a point where they didn't have really any other outs. And then Elon Musk, who was the chairman, I believe, of SolarCity, and obviously the chairman and CEO of Tesla at the time, suddenly unveiled this great innovation that is the solar roof tile, which had been done previously by other people, and it just hadn't taken to the market because it's too expensive. And because they were the problem they had with it was beyond the optics of it. SpaceX had basically lent money to SolarCity. And if SolarCity went bankrupt, SpaceX wouldn't get their money back.
And also, you should point out SolarCity's CEO or whatever was his cousin, Elon Musk's cousin.
Yes, but the SolarCity company was run by two of Musk's cousins, on top of, say, Elon Musk being the chairman, and there's a couple of other people that are also on the board of directors of Tesla and of SolarCity. They say the web of conflicts of interest between Tesla, SpaceX, and SolarCity. I couldn't find the right infographic I wanted to explain it all, but there is more than you can really comprehend. Different sort of, say, conflicts between those. Why those boards? These companies shouldn't be interacting so closely as public companies when there's so many vested interests in it. So yeah, they had to do something to basically make sure SpaceX would get their money back from letting SolarCity borrow it. And yeah, they came up with this solar roof concept, and Musk managed to convince, after trying previously to not much success, that Tesla should take over SolarCity to do his pyramid or whatever it is. They even though they're separate companies, Musk views the emissions of the three companies, or viewed the emissions of the three companies as, they all have to work together to succeed. An individual component can't fail because they're all working to the same ends.
Right.
So even though they are separate companies, he very much viewed them as cooperating anyway. So it came to the point where Tesla really did need to step up and save SolarCity, and it made sense to a point because Tesla makes batteries, kind of. They say they have a partner in Panasonic that actually does the difficult part of making the batteries, and Tesla puts them in boxes. So they wouldn't be where they are again without Panasonic either. And even that the Australian battery project they did, which was the largest battery installation in the world ever, they actually bought batteries from Samsung for that. But that's an inconvenient detail to the amazing things that Tesla has done. The fact that Samsung had those batteries ready to go and can fulfill Musk's timeline situation was kind of swept on the wayside, but Tesla installed all these batteries. So, they paid a contractor to do it, I guess. Well done. So, yeah, back onto the solar roof. So Musk unveiled this thing, and that was like that. Well, with the batteries that we make and the solar panel thing that we've developed here together, we can transform the energy grid, and everyone will want them because it'll pay for itself and it looks amazing. Which to me, so I've worked in the construction industry for a while, and for someone that's so obsessed with the things looking like the future and spaceships, does he want his roof to look like it would have done 100 years ago?
Right. It's a pretty standard roof. Right. It's also this idea that it's going to change. Everyone's going to want one. Not everyone is going to want the same ugly looking roof.
Well, you need to just if it's cost effective to put solar panels on your roof, and you can see the returns on that, I don't think people are going to care. How much do people look at their roofs? And it wouldn't take long for people to get used to solar panels on roofs.
Yeah.
So if you just lay it out and say, well, over 10 years you're going to save $2,000, or whatever it happens to be, that is a good enough selling point. You don't have to go, well, yeah, but if you spend $80,000 now, in 50 years' time, you'll break even, but it will look really good. That's a much harder sell than here's the raw, here's what solar panels and a battery could do for you. Like, you don't need to jazz it up.
That's kind of my thing with Tesla. It's like a cheap, economical electric car is such a better sell when you're you are going to save tens of thousands of dollars, not going to the gas station or whatever. You know what I mean? There's so many instances. Yeah. You don't need to sex up. And again, solar panels on roofs. Come on. I don't know that needs to actually be that sexy.
In my opinion, it doesn't. This is not opening up. The market it opens up to is so niche and so high end. It makes no meaningful impact to the rest, because the roof, especially in America, the roof is going to cost more than the average house in the country. Just the roof.
Yeah.
And that's the break-even point of where you need, this. It maybe makes sense. Say if you're in Silicon Valley, right? Okay, you can probably work it out. Yeah, you're going to break even in 30 years. But in the rest of the country and the rest of the world, a solar panel that they can actually afford itself would be great.
Yeah.
You don't even.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You don't need to. It doesn't need to be the biggest and best in every single way. It just show people that they can save money on their electric bill, and they're going to do it. you don't need to make it more. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, let's just also add here that Elon Musk comes up with, it's like, oh, this is the best way to make solar panels, and we'll have some links in the show notes where you can see, at least the prototype of what these roofs are supposed to look like, and then he gives what is a very Elon Musk, very characteristic of him and the way he announces things. He gives this huge, big, showy presentation in like one of the back lots for Universal Studios, on a disused set from Desperate Housewives. So it's all of these, fake houses. And he basically puts on these, SolarCity's brand new, sexy solar panels, but they're all fake. They didn't actually develop them. I mean, I'm correct in that, right, Nick? I mean, these are just...
They were not functional prototypes.
Yeah, right. So basically props, I mean, these are basically props, and everyone kind of yucks it up. And, I mean, I when you first sort of, like, sent me some stuff on this, I mean, I was just shocked at the mere fact that there's no conflict of interest with Elon Musk basically forcing Tesla into acquiring a company that his other company, that SpaceX not only gave money to, but his cousins are also the owners of. How that's not a conflict of interest or something is crazy. But this SolarCity presentation is fraud. I mean, that's completely, it's not true. He is selling an idea, obviously, to investors and to the stockholders, that they had this wonderful product that doesn't actually exist.
Well, they've done it in an even bigger situation with the Model 3. That was, the press you saw everywhere for 2 years was this $35,000 electric car, which they unveiled in 2016, whenever it was, and say $35,000 electric car that will be a taxi for you while you're not using it, and you can make money while you're not driving it. was the biggest selling point. And that car, still to this day, even though the Model 3 has been on sale now technically for over a year, that car does not exist. There is no $35,000 Model 3 in this world except one that's in a junkyard somewhere. They do not exist. But that was the promise, that was the expectation, and the idea is it's still coming in 3 to 6 months, hopefully. That's the plan. But all the people that signed up for this $35,000 revolution are, so far still waiting. And when it's going to drive itself, that's a whole, that's not happening anytime soon. So people are stretching their budgets, far beyond what people have apparently spent on cars previously in a show of support for Tesla and trying to do this. But it's not what people were promised. So the fact that it's still good and it's a decent product and people like it's great, but you can't advertise something at a price that you never sell it for. So that, to me, that is a bigger fraud than what happened with SolarCity, because they say they were working on it and they're working on both, but the amount of people put down a lot more money for the Model 3 and what it means, people have a lot more to gain from it than with the solar roof, which, say, the presentation very misleading, and the fact that, say, even now, I don't know how many months later, if I can find it in here, it's nearly 2 years later at this point, we haven't, say, as far as I know, there's 2 reports of Tesla people getting these roofs installed, but none, as far as I know, of them actually being activated. So they're on someone's roof, but they may not work. They may not work yet. They're figuring it out. Growing pains is what we're told.
No, how does this kind of stuff just sort of not get the? I mean, the SEC has obviously slapped this suit just a few days ago. I think it was actually like the last Wednesday, because it was the day we were trying to record. and the SEC slaps his suit. Musk instantly settles, which is very interesting. I think that's very telling of how little he wants the SEC looking into all of his companies. But for a paltry amount. I think Musk personally pays $20 million and Tesla pays $20 million. Now there are some other stipulations, including that he cannot tweet about the company without a lawyer approving the tweet. So basically, he's not allowed to tweet anymore about Tesla or I suppose anything that could influence the
he's already sort of stepped his way around that one, kind of. Well, that's what people are sort of claiming, because he posted a YouTube video which had a hint in it.
And wasn't there?
He's now communicating in memes and code rather than in his usual direct, easily to prove wrong language.
Right, and I know he also sent an email to all of the workers at Tesla, and then he basically helped leak that email to some financial publications. So I mean, of course he's getting around it. But now this is in reference to his obviously erroneous claims that the Saudis were investing in the company, and that Tesla was going to go public with a stock price of $420, and this was all a done deal, and then the Saudi, we're saying the Saudis is this sort of monolithic entity, but the Saudis basically said no, this is not true.
Well, it was the Saudis because it was their sovereign wealth fund. So
right. Yes. Exactly.
It was the Saudi government at the end of the day. So that's. Yeah, well, they apparently approached Musk, wanting to take a stake in the company, but they didn't want to buy it on the open market. They wanted to buy into Tesla, and Tesla would issue new shares just for them.
Right.
So they wanted a sizable stake in the company. I don't know exactly the specifics, but they wanted a reasonable stake. Musk apparently turned that down. And then the Saudis then went and bought quite a sizable chunk of the company on the public market, which caused a massive, because of the amount of volume of buy orders going through, the price of Tesla went up when this happened. And as that sort of happened, Musk was apparently sort of mused based on the conversations he had with the Saudis' wealth fund, that, well, they probably would be interested in taking the company private as well. So he's thinking about it, and he reckons they're going to give him the money. So he tweeted out that, based on his conversations he'd had with the Saudis, that they were willing to work on a deal with him to take Tesla private and to basically remove the public scrutiny that it's been subjected to, which is why you see a lot more criticism of Tesla rather than SpaceX, because we don't know what SpaceX does. We don't know the positions of their finances and how their business model is actually working, because they don't have to publicly file accounts. So that's why Tesla is more interesting, but obviously it opens them up to a lot more scrutiny. So now, after using the public markets to get billions and billions of dollars in funding for them, now that the other side of that and the larger scrutiny is coming to bear, Musk apparently wanted to thinks, well, being public is bad for us, because we're being judged too much. We need to go private so we can focus on the task at hand rather than having to deal with people asking questions we don't want to answer. So he took the conversations he had with the Saudis as a verbal agreement that they would support Musk in taking the company private, which problem Musk had was he announced the price that he wanted to do that, and said that the funding was secure. So just because he had a chat with the Saudis does not mean, I wouldn't even put, if I was dealing with the Saudis, I wouldn't take a handshake as a sign this deal is done. You got to wait till the check's in your hand, kind of thing. You got to wait till the cash is in your bank account. You can't. I wouldn't trust them to honor a gentleman's agreement, to be quite honest. But it's the same for any large institution like that.
To be fair, they didn't even give a gentleman's agreement.
No.
No, I mean, okay. Now, you see, when you break that down, in my mind, and again, I'm not an expert in securities and what the SEC does and financial stuff, but I mean, that in my mind doesn't seem nearly as bad as you said. I mean, the fraud that the Tesla Model 3 doesn't exist. That people are buying basically a fictional car. I mean, also just, the mere fact that Tesla is sort of hiding, maintenance costs and things like that. I mean, that to me really seems more like straight up fraud. And then when you factor in, the conflicts of interest and stuff with all these other various companies, and again, I mean, when it seems like basically Musk also creates companies in order to bail out other companies. And when we were talking off air, I mean, we sort of speculated that's what the Boring Company is going to be designed for. That at some point, if another one of his companies starts to sort of look like it's going to tank, then the Boring Company will absorb that. And maybe they absorb Tesla, and Tesla no longer exists or something. I mean, I don't think that's quite going to happen, but that does seem to be like that to me is. I mean, again, I don't know if that's necessarily illegal, but these are not the business practices of, the genius that Elon Musk presents himself to be. And I said that he was sort of like a cut rate Howard Hughes figure. And I say cut rate because, again, I don't think Howard Hughes did definitely waste a lot of money on like crazy projects and stuff. But at the end of the day, he was still, wealthy as a regular businessman. I mean, his sort of crazier thing, like the Spruce Goose and all these other, pet projects and being a Hollywood celebrity, he was able to facilitate that, not only because of all the money he made from the tool company that he inherited, but also because, I mean, he was just a wealthy person that made lots of business, in Las Vegas and other places. Whereas Musk, I mean, really just seems to be burning money on ludicrous projects that even he himself admits might be pointless, like this series of underground tunnels that he wants to build all over Los Angeles, in order to cut down on traffic, which he's even openly admitted might be a, quote, dumb idea.
Yeah, well, he kind of does have this, this thing that he has these ideas that are great, but they also may be stupid. And that's probably because the other one with that is the self-driving stuff, because they're taking a very different approach to every other company. And he's fully admitted he might be wrong and it might not work out, but he's still going to try it anyway. He's not going to look at other options. He's just going to keep doing. He's got his idea, and it seems like Musk has always been in the position where he's always managed to roll the dice and come up on top when it really matters. So, like with the funding secured tweet, he's always managed to raise the money he's needed before, and he had a decent chat with the guys. So good enough, really.
Yeah.
But this is the difference between being, a private company working with venture capital, where you can make all sorts of claims and you can be really ambitious, and then being the CEO of a public company. This is the role that he's never had to really deal with the ramifications of actually being held accountable to bigger forces for what he says. Because when you are a publicly traded company, anyone can invest in you. So you have a responsibility as the chairman and CEO and whatever other positions of the company he holds to be honest and be clear and not say things that could be misinterpreted and exaggerations and all sorts of stuff like that. So while some of the other stuff is worse, perhaps for his character as a person with how he's done, but you can like with the Model 3 with the roof, you can say they were close. They thought it was going to happen. It was a reasonable expectation that they could deliver on the promise. But when it comes to saying I can take my $60 billion company private if the share price goes up another 20%, and there's money to do so, that's a very categorical thing that is not open to interpretation, and it's not we didn't realize that this would happen. So when you're trying to build a car or do another project, there are situations that happen, unforeseen events, which mean that things don't go to plan. But when you're saying something about something very specific related to a publicly traded company and what your intentions are with it, you can't just make stuff up like that. This is different from marketing. So that's where this became the 420 thing became such a pivotal point for people, because there was no way it could be true. There was no reasonable interpretation that says this is a true thing, this is real. So the fact that he said it, and then the company had to go into like damage control mode and be like, we didn't really know what was going on. We're going to look into it now. We're going to set up a committee and hire some lawyers and advisors, and we'll look into it. Doesn't look good because if it was a private company, very different. You can kind of say what you want. As long as you're not, actually, directly trying to get people's money and lying to them. You can make bold claims about what your company's going to do and what position you're going to be in. You can bend the truth in all sorts of ways. But when you say are accountable in a way that a public company is, you can't just take the musings off the top of your head and go, well, that's going to happen now. This is what the direction for the company is, because it's not your decision. You are part of this piece. You're part of this puzzle, but it's not. The company is bigger than you. But with Musk and Tesla, because he is the CEO, the chairman for now, the largest shareholder, and various other positions, and founder and all that, you can't separate the two together. And this is the problem with like Elon Musk's Twitter account, that you have to look at a tweet until now, you have to look at a tweet he's made and go, well, what is the least legally troubling position he could be saying this from? Because that's what you just have to assume, because there's things he says on Twitter which are just his personal musings, but they get intertwined with him speaking as the CEO, speaking as the board of directors. But he doesn't say what he's speaking as at any given point. So you can't make a judgment call, and you just have to go, well, the company uses it for official communications, and therefore he is saying these things, so we have to assume face value that they are true. But we say with the funding secured thing, there was no kind interpretation where you could say, well, that's reasonable. Because there just wasn't, no one is going to, because it would have taken, like conservatively, it probably would have taken $15, $20 billion to take the company private. No one's offering up that kind of money.
No.
It's too late in the game for that. They've had these rounds, they've had these opportunities, but no one's going to come at them and say, okay, you've already lost, $1.5 billion this year, or $1.5 billion this year.
Yeah, here's like 20 more.
Yeah, we'll give you another 20, and hopefully in a couple of years you'll get it. It's, no one was. There's no reasonable interpretation that says that this is legit. And another thing that he's done is he talks about the share price. He talks about action in the market, which pragmatic, seasoned CEOs don't talk about. how the company's performing in the market, because you don't want to set the wrong tone. You don't want to say the wrong thing and make people think, oh well, the shares are going to go up because of this. So companies, CEOs and important people do not talk about generally the share price of the company and what's happened in the day-to-day movements. But Elon Musk seems to quite enjoy talking about the share price is going to go up, this is going to happen, that's going to happen in X amount. He said it, the short burn of the century in 6 weeks or however long it was, which didn't happen. But the fact he actually acknowledges what's happening with the company in the market and his personal situation is tied to it, because like what a lot of CEOs of these kind of companies do, they borrow money against their shares so they can fund their extravagant lifestyles without taking a salary, without doing anything particularly. It's all sort of untaxable as far as I understand it, and that's how they fund their lifestyle. But because of the volatility of Tesla's share price, if the share price goes below a certain point, Musk then has to offer up more shares, or the bank that he owes the money to is going to sell them. So if the share price does go down to those levels that we saw with the SEC announcement, and if they stay there beyond Tesla's risk with having to repay the bonds in cash, also Elon Musk personally risks getting margin called and losing a load of money and a load of Tesla shares because the share price wasn't where he expected it to be. So he's very active in talking up the company for the share price specifically, and trying to promote it, and which it's not what a CEO typically does. A CEO typically does not acknowledge publicly day-to-day movements in their share prices, but Elon Musk does, and goes to the extent of taunting short sellers and people that are betting against the company, saying, well, your positions are going to be screwed in a few weeks when something special happens, or saying things like funding secured at $420. And even the weirdest one that he did was he sent a box of shorts to a prominent short seller. He actually posted a box of shorts to David Einhorn, who is a prominent short seller. I can't remember exactly what his claim to fame was. It might have been Enron. So he actively engages in this stuff, and it's very hard to argue that he doesn't try to manipulate the stock price through his tweets and through him buying shares in pre-market and stuff like that. So yeah, when he says things like that, it brings a lot more attention than just unveiling a product that may never come to pass, like the Roadster or the Tesla Semi. It's annoying, and there may be fraud involved, but it's a much more of an extrapolation rather than this matters in the market today. There is a definite sort of cause and effect situation with him talking about where a target share price. So it's, even though it may not seem as important on the face of it to the average person, the ramifications of that are greater than, say, just showing off a product that may never exist.
Well, and it's funny the way you were kind of describing Musk there as making I don't even know if they're necessarily rookie mistakes as a CEO, or if this is just the way he operates, but it is not the way a normal CEO or investor or businessman would operate. And it's funny because on the Joe Rogan show, the Joe Rogan Experience, that recently had Elon Musk on as a guest, and I don't know if I necessarily want to encourage people to go watch it, because it is probably the most insufferable conversation you'll ever see for however it was 2.5 hours or something. But
I couldn't do it. I say send me a transcript and I'll read it, but
right. But there are some interesting little gems in there. I mean, the big one is that Elon Musk says Well, my Wikipedia account says I'm a business magnate and an investor, but I just consider myself an engineer. That's what I do. And he says it in this sort of like shucks, I'm just a engineering genius. Yeah. And although in a sense he is right, because he's a pretty terrible business magnate. Because all of what he's doing is just stupid. This perception that he can go on the Joe Rogan show, smoke weed, get baked, talking about, how we're all living in a simulation and a bunch of other just utter fucking nonsense. And then for him to be shocked that the price of his, of Tesla dips dramatically.
Well, that one is a great situation, because the smoking weed thing really provided great cover for another story that came out the same day, which was that their chief accounting officer resigned, but he'd only been there for a month, and I think it was in like his first few days on the job was when Musk made that infamous tweet about funding secured. And so basically it seemed like the guy that they hired from Samsung, I think he was still working at Samsung, not Samsung, Seagate, sorry. He got hired, Musk makes a ridiculous claim on social media, and then a month later this guy's out the door. But say the Joe Rogan show happened the night before that news broke.
Okay.
So obviously one gets a lot more headlines than the other and gets lost in that, because there's some gold in that Joe Rogan thing.
Oh yeah.
But
totally.
really was that the stock market? Was Joe Rogan what caused the stock market, or was it the CIO leaving at the same time, or was it both?
Yeah.
It was a good thing, and it was. When Musk did it, when Musk took the hit, he knew at the time that the news was coming out tomorrow that his 1 month CEO was leaving, which was never going to look good based on how many people leave the company, high level people, cycle in and out of the company all the time. So it proved to be a great temporary distraction, and downplayed that news that quite considerably. But my opinion is that had just as much as an impact on the action that day than what happened on Joe Rogan.
I didn't realize that. That is interesting. I guess at the same time, any CEO smoking weed is going to affect the stock price. And again, it doesn't matter.
Elon Musk has made some other very, eccentric claims and stuff, and talks about red wine and Ambien, and comets are made out of cocaine and stuff like that. So, I'm sure it generated some reaction, and it wasn't good. Especially where a lot of people looked at the angle was because he's CEO of director of SpaceX, which has Department of Defense contracts. So he can't be doing recreational drugs as a defense contractor. So that's where people were like, this Tesla, it doesn't matter, but
SpaceX.
This has a problem for SpaceX. So that's where people, I think, were more sort of looking at this is the wider ramifications of that moment. But I don't think it really. It definitely didn't have any lasting impact, but I don't think it really made that much difference on that day either.
I think what I meant it's the sort of short-sightedness again, because it's like he assumes, well, because I'm the benevolent billionaire god emperor, I can do whatever I want. And again, I don't care if he smokes weed. I don't care if he does coke all night with Grimes and takes Ambien to fall asleep. I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. I don't think it really has much of an effect. But the idea that as you said, as you were saying before, as a publicly traded company, regular people investing and just people, here in New York and Wall Street and other places being like, I don't trust him, because of that. therefore let's, the stock price is going to change. I mean, the market is going to decide that. It's like I don't really even want to get into it, but the Vern Unsworth thing, the pedo comment. Did you honestly think you were going to get away with that? Because he made fun of your dinky little submarine. So you call this guy who absolutely helped rescue these kids, you call him a pedophile, not once but like twice. And the second, well, more than that, yeah, exactly. I mean, and then doubling down and being like, insinuating that he had, investigators that could present evidence that he was going, and that he said that his wife, who is Thai, was a child bride. I mean, really kind of crazy stuff. I mean, how he thought that wouldn't matter. I mean, again, that's like this weird, almost like Howard Hughes, larger than life supervillain, that he could kind of get away with this because he's Elon Musk, and I mean it's ludicrous. And then I mean when you brought up an interesting point. I mean this psycho has also got government contracts with the Pentagon, doing I don't even want to know with satellites and other stuff. I mean like that is sort of scary. We didn't talk much about the SpaceX side, so we'll have to get you back on at some point next to kind of go into that. But I mean, that is sort of terrifying. That you do have this guy going around, possibly using drugs. I mean, what was the Azealia Banks saying that he was? I think it was her saying he was on like acid, tweeting about the stock price and whatnot. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. And it's more just like you invite people like that into your inner circle, and these stories leak out, whether they're true or not. You've created an environment where those stories can be perpetuated, which is
he's given himself he's cultivated the rock star CEO image.
Yes.
And he's the only person that actually has that image. But it comes with the downsides of both. Mm-hmm. Being the rock star and being the CEO. You get the downsides of both. You get the upsides of both.
Right.
But you get the downsides of both as well. And this is something that he finds very difficult to comprehend. Like just yesterday, he made a tweet, because there's people that monitor the news feeds for the bias against Tesla, because the oil industry and the car industry are all against Tesla. They're buying off all the media publications and inserting bias everywhere. It's all fake news. It's exactly the same gimmick that Trump uses. And Musk tweeted, yeah, there's something up. This is not verbatim, but he said there's something up with like the Yahoo feeds because it's all really negative. Someone's gaming it. It's like, yeah, but like a day ago, 2 days ago, you settled with the SEC for fraud. People are not going to be writing glowing reports about you at this point. And you just about hit your 3 times revised deadlines, targets just about kind of in some ways. So there's okay news and there's bad news. There is no, but he doesn't seem to understand that, yeah, well, after you make a deal with the SEC over a fraud case, the reporting is not going to be glowing.
Right, and people are not going to trust you. Investors are not going to trust you. People are going to be hesitant.
It's not up to I'm sure both of us have our real problems with the mainstream media, the Washington Post, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, all those kind of publications. We could probably talk for quite a while on the problems with those, but it's not their job to reprint press releases and promote the company. Yes, Tesla doesn't pay for advertising. That doesn't mean that the journalists of the world have to step up and make the difference up just because they are because a company has noble intentions, because a politician has a great vision, doesn't mean that they get a pass on spouting nonsense just because they haven't, they have good intentions. You don't, and that's because they say they have good intentions as well.
Well, so that, if you want good press for Tesla, don't invite the SEC to sue you.
Yeah,
I mean,
deliver on products. Don't.
Yeah.
Do you can do great things, and there's so many great things to talk about. What Tesla has achieved, what Elon Musk has achieved, is incredible, but it's incredible without all the exaggerations and aggrandizing everything to being world-changing, pivotal for everything and humanity itself. And that's just like we touched on briefly, and we didn't really get there on it. We'll say with how people talk about Tesla and Elon Musk on Twitter. It is it's two factions. There's saving the world, saving humanity, getting us to Mars, and fraud of the century. And when you look at those two sides together, most people, I think, would probably lean on the fraud of the century when the other side is saying this guy's going to save humanity.
Yeah,
because that does have a very they've now started seeming to embrace it. This cult, the idea of a cult and the Church of Elon does seem to be self-parody gaining some traction. But how much of it is self-parody and how much it is people genuinely believe this, it's very hard to tell, I think, because people really do, like say when he anytime something slightly negative happens that you can't deny, like making the sort of settlement with the SEC or other things have happened, and people, hundreds of people take to Twitter to just say, oh, it's okay, Elon, you're doing great work, we love you. Right. Hundreds of people do this seemingly every time he stubs his toe. the world has to come and remind him that he's doing great things and the world is a better place with him.
And he's probably reading it too. Oh, good. Oh, yeah. Thank God.
Oh, he for all the 120 or whatever hours he's supposed to work a week, he does seem to spend a lot of time going through his Twitter mentions. It's because he picks up on stuff that people have said a while ago, and then he has to respond to it. It's not like he's just seeing the first thing in his feed when he looks at his phone. He is scrolling through that and going, oh, this annoyed me. This annoyed me. I've got to deal with this right now.
Let me address this quickly. I mean, we unfortunately we didn't spend enough time on the sort of cult of Musk, and we'll have to have you back on, Nick. Maybe in a couple of weeks, a week or two, we could kind of pick this up again, because that's sort of the other side of it, and it's also fascinating. We've sort of mentioned a couple times that, I mean, his similarities to Donald Trump are also, I think, actually quite obvious. And it's funny that, again, he presents himself as some sort of like the balance point to Trump, if
anyone's doubting that Musk and Trump have very similar sort of personality traits, I would direct you to look at the support Mike Cernovich has given Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they appeal to that kind. They broadly appeal to different demographics, but there is such a similarity where, say, someone like Mike Cernovich can see Elon Musk and actually get to the real core of his being, of being an alpha male, and that's what Elon Musk is, something that seems to be very important. It's like, he can't admit that he showed emotion with a New York Times interview, and he had to tell his wife on their wedding day. Oh.
My guest, Nick, a.k.a. Artisan Loaf on Twitter. Definitely follow him if you want to hear more about Tesla and all that. And I will be having Nick back on because we need to expand this conversation out a bit. But until then, I will be talking to you all very soon.
No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Have you experienced the miracle of CBDs? They can help you reduce suffering, reduce stress, help you sleep better, modulate inflammation in the body, and is absolutely safe. Meta Hemp Solutions offers a radically innovative approach to CBDs for exceptional results. Stop suffering and reduce your stress now. Isn't it time for a good night's sleep? Stop worrying about tomorrow today. Lab tested for potency, purity, and is non-psychoactive. Free shipping to all 50 states. Try our product risk-free. Money-back guarantee. Use code AFR15 to get 15% off. That's Alpha Foxtrot Romeo 15 to get 15% off. Offer ends soon, so visit Meta Hemp Solutions today at metahempsolutions.com or call 833-858-7500. Suffer no more. Get rid of the stress and sleep better. Get our product now at metahempsolutions.com. That's metahempsolutions.com.
We all know that they're not telling us the truth. So stand up for your rights, demand the real medicine, and your right to use it and grow it. This is Rick Sensen, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
Are the trials of modern-day living getting to you? Feeling tired all the time with no energy? Is proper nutrition a challenge? Having trouble sleeping? All of these evils, sleeplessness, tiredness, poor nutrition, and stress, wreak havoc on our bodies and minds. Enerfood, our incredible organic superfood, has been here to save your life day by day for over 14 years. With the densest nutrition on the planet, Enerfood is filled with 20 superfoods and super herbs designed to cure the evils of modern life. Enerfood will turn you into a superhero, and your family and friends will notice. Don't you want that get up and go feeling you need to seize the day? Why wait? Try it today and start feeling great again. Order now at www.enerfood.com and use the code TR15 for 15% off, or call 866-762-9238 to place your order by phone. Use code TR15 for 15% off Enerfood at www.enerfood.com.
Yo, what's up? Check this out.
The voice of the revolution. American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Tell the truth. Don't be bullshitting people. There's enough bullshit as it is. In fact, there's just enough. Did you know that? There's just enough bullshit to hold things together in this country. Bullshit is the glue that binds us as a nation. Where would we be without our safe, familiar American bullshit? Land of the free, home of the brave, the American dream. All men are equal, justice is blind, the press is free, your vote counts. Business is honest, the good guys win, the police are on your side, God is watching you, your standard of living will never decline, and everything is going to be just fine. The official national bullshit story. I call it the American okey doke.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio and service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs and artillery batteries not included.
Launch sequence initiated.
We're now in the approach phase. Everything looking good. Control is good. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Prepare your mind to experience American Freedom Radio.